From the land to the air and now to the sea, our final armed forces team of 2024 is the Navy Midshipmen. And this team is going to be looking to a little bit of a new offensive system. While you have some players leaving both offensively and defensively, the biggest change for this team is what they're going to be doing offensively. They've transitioned over to play more of a wing tee with some spread offense concepts in 2024. How will that work out for them? And can Navy be competitive and get back to a bowl game in 2024? Well, you're about to find out what I think here in this video. What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. I want to welcome you to my channel and welcome you back to prediction season. It's where I predict all 134 FBS level college football teams, and it means I am doing your favorite team. So I want you guys to hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you know when your favorite team has a video on my channel if it doesn't have one already. Happy 4th of July to all my fellow Americans out there. This is the final armed force team we are talking about. Thank you for taking time away from your celebrations to talk some college football with me. Guys, you can help support the channel in any way you want to. Again, watching the video is a huge way and it means a lot to me. You can subscribe and ring the bell, but anything else you do to interact with the channel helps support what I do here on YouTube. So you guys can like, you can comment, you can share, and really anything else you do helps to support what I do here on YouTube. So I greatly appreciate each and every one of you for doing so. And now let's dive on in to talking about the Navy Midshipmen out of the American Athletic in 2024. We'll take a deep dive into the team's offense, into the defense, and at the end of the video, we'll go through game by game and give Navy's schedule a preview and prediction. A couple more things before we do start, because right over here are going to be the stats the team put up either offensively or defensively last season. And for your viewing pleasure, of course, right below the team's logo, I have put the team's coaching staff again. New offensive coordinator Drew Cronick comes in. He's going to be implementing the sort of wing tee with some spread offense concepts, but we got to talk about the talent that leaves this offense for Brian Newberry's group. And it starts with two very notable players at the quarterback position that will be gone for Navy. That is Ty Lavatai and Xavier Arline. They have both graduated from the Naval Academy, 701 yards, 5 touchdowns, 2 interceptions for Lavatai last year. He's been battling some injuries over the past couple of years. Won't have to worry about that now. He is no longer going to play football for the Midshipmen. 320 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, both of them hovering slightly above 50% completion percentage. In fact, Lavatai actually closer to 55% completion percentage there. So who's going to be taking over this team at the quarterback position? Well, it's going to be one of two guys. It's going to be either Braxton Woodson, my apologies, who had 163 yards for a touchdown, a pick. He threw 40 passes last season. But I happen to believe it's going to be Blake Horvath starting at quarterback for this team. Now, if Braxton Woodson comes out and starts day one, it wouldn't necessarily surprise me. But I think Horvath is the better quarterback here. And while the stats may not show it, and Blake Horvath didn't get as much playing time as Woodson did last season, I think Horvath is the more talented piece here. He definitely was, well, I can't even say he was the better rusher last year, as the two guys were only 10 yards apart. But Blake Horvath was more efficient with his carries. He had more than a yard and a half. He had more than a yard and a half more per carry than what Braxton Woodson did. You do also have Carson Lopati back in that room as well. Again, I think Blake Horvath will start. Braxton Woodson may start there as well, but you'll definitely see all three of these guys utilized in the quarterback room here in 2024. Running backs, again, you have your running backs, fullbacks, wingbacks, slot backs, everything here with this Navy program. I've kind of lumped them all into one. So in the carrying room, Daniel Jones and Khalil Crawford have both graduated from this team, but neither of them really got substantial carries last season. You get pretty much everyone that had a good amount of carries for this team last year back. Alec Texa, and hopefully I'm saying that last name right, as well as Daba Fofana, your two leading rushers. Texa was by far the most talented. The stats show it. The eye test shows it. He's a very talented player, 758 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 6 yards per carry last season. Fofana had over 250 yards last season. Eli Heidenreich had over 200 yards last year. Brandon Chapman, Amin Hassan, and Anton Hall will also all be returning to this team for the Navy Midshipmen here in 2024. Wide receiver room, they don't really utilize them a whole lot, but hey, there still are some solid pieces in this wide receiver room. Eli Heindreich and Brandon Chapman were the two leading receivers last year, but Jaden Umbarger was the leading receiver among true wide receivers. In fact, the only true wide receiver that had over 100 receiving yards with 145 and one touchdown. He has gone off of this team, as well as Kamari Williams in the wide receiver room and in the tight end room as well. Nathan Kent, Reggie Velez, Croy Myers, and in the tight end room, Cody Howard, Thomas Scully, and DJ Donovan all return. Again, this is an offense that'll be much more focused on the run than the pass, but it's going to be utilizing the pass a lot more. I believe they were the Armed Forces team that averaged the most passing yards per game last season, which absolutely makes sense because they threw the most passes out of any Armed Forces team last season. They threw 199 of them. Second was Army, and of course, third was the team that we just talked about in my last video with the Air Force Falcons. But you still have some solid wide receiver pieces here, and we'll see how they get utilized, especially in this new offensive system that Navy is going to have in 2024. You do lose some offensive linemen from last season. Larion Mertezi, Joshua Pena, and Sam Glover are all gone. So, who all is coming back to this room? Connor McMahon, Ben Purvis, Trey Cummings, Hoke Smith, Brent South, Creedon Folger, and Grayson Crawford all come back to this offensive line room. A combination of those five guys will be your starting five on the offensive line for Navy in 2024. Again, the most vital thing that we want to see with this Navy offense this season. One, I am looking at who starts at that quarterback position, whether it's Horvath or Woodson. It may very well just end up going to which guy is going to look better in this system, whether that's Horvath or Woodson. Again, they're going to be moving to the wing T. They're going to run some spread offense concepts. They're going to be able to run the triple option concepts out of that package there as well. I'm just really excited to see what Navy's offense looks like. And look, after last year, you didn't even score 18 points per game. You barely got over 300 yards per game. Those numbers are not atypical of an Armed Forces offense. They usually hover right around there. Army did last year. Air Force went above and beyond because, in my opinion, they've just gotten the better athletes out of any Armed Forces academy, and they've had some exceptional players, a.k.a. go back to Brad Roberts a couple years ago. You had Emmanuel Michel, John Lee Eldridge last year. Anyway, I could go on and on about that, but the 28.9% completion percentage on third down. When you're able to run spread offense concepts here, that makes life a little bit easier for the quarterback on third down. So we'll see what the Navy offense looks like here, but I'm really excited to watch this sort of new formation come in here with this team. And before we talk about the defense, I got to get down here and take a quick water break, because it's important that you stay hydrated, especially on a day like today. Again, happy 4th of July to all my fellow Americans out there. Okay, talking about PJ Volker's defense here for the Navy midshipman. That is the defensive coordinator for this Navy team under Brian Newberry. A lot of talent is going to be leaving the defensive side of the football. And actually, a lot of guys leaving through the transfer portal as well, which isn't usually typical out of these Armed Forces programs, but you do lose some really solid defensive talent through the portal. On the defensive line, it's Jacob Busick. In the linebacker room, it's Gianni Woodson-Brooks. And in the cornerback room, it's Elias Larry. And we'll talk about all the stats when we get to their certain position. But right now, we got to start by talking about the defensive line. Clay Cromwell is going to be gone, a defensive tackle from last year at 47 tackles, 3 sacks last season. And he was a really big piece to what this team did on the defensive line, so that is a big loss there. And you also do lose Donald Bernard Jr. He is gone as well, 36 tackles, a sack and a half last season. Was listed as a guard in the stat sheet I'm looking at here from ESPN, but played a lot on the defensive line last season, and again, came away with 36 tackles. Jacob Busick didn't play much last season, only 4 tackles, 1 sack, but he's notably going over to play for UCLA, so he is moving over to a Power 5 program. It shows you what kind of talent he can possess. When you talk about this defensive line and pieces that come back, Justin Reed, Landon Robinson, Kendall Whiteside, Tyler Narion, and I probably butchered that last name, so I apologize, and Train LaFond, they all return to this defensive line. You take a look at some of the more notable names there. Justin Reed, more of an edge rusher type player, 4.5 sacks last year. That was tied for the team lead. He had 50 tackles, and again, a lot of other solid talent here. Robinson had 4 sacks last season, and then you get a lot of the depth guys from last year coming back that'll play bigger roles here in 2024. Will Harbor and Trey Jamison are both gone out of this linebacker room. Will Harbor last season, 84 tackles, 3 sacks, was the team's second leading tackler. Trey Jamison is another piece that had some pretty solid playing time. I mean, only 11 tackles for him last year, but when he was in, he definitely made his impact known. But Gianni Woodson Brooks, that transfer that I told you about earlier, again, kind of right there with Jameson, more of a depth piece, but did have double-digit tackles last year with 12. So when you talk about the linebacker room and who comes back, well, you get a guy that broke triple digits in tackles last year, and Colin Ramos, 110 tackles, 2 sacks last season. Luke Paris is back. Jordan Sanders, Kyle Jacob, and Daniel Spelios are all coming back to this not this wide receiver room. I don't know why I had wide receivers on mine. This linebacker room here for the midshipmen in 2024. Defensive back room, let's talk about it. Elias Larry, he is gone again, as I said earlier, through the transfer portal. 15 tackles with 3 passes defended for him last season. Really only the notable cornerback that I could find, at least that leaves this team. When you look in your safety room, Xavier McDonald and Evan Gibbons do leave this team. McDonald last season, 51 tackles, 3 sacks. Pretty good player there in the safety position. And then Gibbons last season, he was kind of utilized all over this defense, but pretty much everywhere I could find, including 247sports.com, listed him as a safety. So that's why I put him where I did. 39 tackles, 1 sack for him last season. But you get a lot of your more pass defending defensive backs coming back to this team. Andrew Duhart and B.D. Williams and Deshaun Peel come back in this cornerback room. And in your safety room, Ryan Lane, who led the team with 8 pass defended and tied the team lead with Peel, actually, for 4 interceptions last season. Peel was a top 15 tackler for the team last year. Jackson Campbell, Adam Walker, and Kushi Abraham all come back to this safety room. And kickers are people too, so you have to show them some love. Evan Warren has gone to the graduation, but Riley Reifman and Nathan Kirkwood are back to do the punting and kicking duties, respectively, for the midshipmen in 2024. Overall, talking about this defense for the Navy midshipmen, you do lose a lot of talent from last year, but really a lot of your more notable guys, maybe apart from your defensive line, because Cromwell and Bernard were very solid players, and that's not to discredit what any of these other guys brought. Obviously, Will Harbor is a big loss in that linebacker room, but Justin Reed coming back on the defensive line is huge. Getting Colin Ramos to come back in the linebacker room is huge. Duhart and Williams back in the cornerback room is huge. Lane and Campbell coming back in the safety room is huge. And I could go on and on and on. This is the Navy team that, yes, does lose some solid talent, but a lot of really good defensive pieces come back to this team. And you probably should see that rush defensive number maybe stay where it is, if not get better than it was last year. And that passing defensive number, I definitely think should get better in 2024 as well. This is the defense that I like, has a lot of solid talent on it, but when you talk about the Navy football schedule, it is full of its bumps and bruises. This is a very tough schedule for the Navy midshipmen, especially trying to employ a new offensive system here in 2024. Any game at home will be underlined. Well, any game on the road or in italics or that slanted text. They have 2 neutral site games, which are listed accordingly. Any game at home, or I should say any game highlighted in green. I already said that. Any game in green is going to be a game that I think the midshipmen win easily. Any game in yellow is going to be a close competitive game, but I think the midshipmen are going to be able to win. Well, any game in red is a game that I see Navy losing in 2024. It starts out with a team out of the FCS ranks in the Bucknell Bison, and I think they get the win here against Bucknell. Again, trying to employ the new offensive system. This is a nice test here. The defense should be able to hold this Bucknell offense, and that's what's going to help Navy win this game. But when you are trying to tool around with a new offensive system here and just see how things work, see where everyone fits, getting a team like Bucknell is perfect for game 1. And no slight to my Temple Owl fans here, I just am not high on this team here in 2024. A lot of solid talent leaves defensively, but most notably offensively. E.J. Warner, that is Kurt Warner's son, is gone at quarterback. He is transferred over to Rice. So Temple, a team that did not perform well last season, now with all the talent they lost, I definitely don't think are going to perform well in 2024. Again, I think Navy will be able to tool around a little bit with this new offensive system they're trying to implore. I think the midshipmen start out 2-0 in 2024, and they get another extra week to kind of play around within their own selves, offensively, and even move some pieces around defensively in their first bye week of the season. Again, with them playing in technical week 16 after conference championship week against the Army Black Knights. There are a ton of bye weeks built into this Navy midshipmen schedule. All right, After your first bye week, this is where stuff starts to get real. You have to play the Memphis Tigers. Granted, you get them at home, but Seth Hennigan and the Memphis Tigers are full of talent. They got some great pieces in through the transfer portal. The wide receiver room is going to be excellent for Memphis this upcoming season. Again, I talked about Seth Hennigan, or I should say I mentioned his name just a little bit ago. There's no reason to say he couldn't get 4,000 yards passing in 2024. The Memphis defense has some really solid talent, and that will be a team that can push for a college football playoff spot to represent the G5. I don't think Navy is going to be able to win that game. That is a loss. UAB is going to be a much better team than they were last season. Trent Dilfer's squad, yes, has a lot of really good pieces leaving, including at the quarterback position, at the running back position. I believe both of your starters in those respective regards are gone. You had some solid pieces coming through the transfer portal. The defense has a lot of good pieces, and I do think that the UAB Blazers, again, will be a much more competitive team this upcoming season, and they will be able to beat the Navy Midshipmen. You have to go on the road and play the Air Force Falcons, which we just talked about in my last video. And look, Air Force loses everybody from last season. Know that? Okay, yes, everybody technically is an exaggeration, but 17 starters on that team are gone, and a lot of the depth there at Air Force didn't really see much playing time last season. Yet I love Troy Calhoun as a head coach. I think he's the best head coach out of any one of the armed forces programs, and Air Force still has a lot of good talent on it. They're going to be utilizing more of the pass than they have recently. Still got a good group of backs there, some good, really good defensive pieces, and that defense will be physical as usual. So Navy, after winning 2 straight to begin the season, drops under 500 after losing 3 in a row, but after their second bye week of the year, they'll get a tool around with some more things, and they'll come back home and they will beat the Charlotte 49ers. Biff Poggy's group, I think, is going to see some improvement here. How many more wins does that lead to for the Charlotte 49ers? I am unsure. They weren't that great of a team last season. I don't think they'll be that great of a team in 2024 either. Charlotte could see some good improvement this year, but not enough to beat Navy, in my opinion. Again, those defensive pieces, I think will be able to lead Navy to a win over the Charlotte 49ers. Then, second half of the year, a neutral site game against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, but it doesn't matter where this game is being played. It could be played in Navy. It could be played on a sea boat for all I care, which would absolutely favor Navy. Notre Dame is going to win this game. Marcus Freeman and company are really, really talented. Riley Leonard is coming into play quarterback. They got a ton of really young but really talented offensive pieces. The defense is coming back. The defense has a lot coming back. Benjamin Morrison is returning. You got some really good defensive pieces coming in through the transfer portal, and that's a really hard team for Navy to beat. I think that they are going to lose to the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Coming up next for the Navy Midshipmen are the Rice Owls, and this one is a pure toss-up game to me. Why? Well, I will tell you. It is a road game for Navy, so that already plays into their detriment a little bit because they have to go on the road in Texas to play this game. But Rice lost some talent from last season. They lost Luke McCaffrey to the NFL, along with some really good pieces, especially in the defensive back room on the defense that have left through the transfer portal. Yet, what did I say earlier in this video? E.J. Warner, a guy that I really, really like at the quarterback position, coming over to Rice to play quarterback. That's going to give this team a nice boost offensively. And again, I know I just said they lost a lot of good talent. There still are some solid pieces there, but I just have I kind of have a sneaky feeling that this is a game that Navy is going to be able to pick up and win here. Yes, Rice loses a ton of pieces, and they're still going to be talented in 2024. That's a team that absolutely can compete for a bowl game. But I think Navy is going to have 1, maybe 2 games this year where they kind of surprise. In this offensive system, it just seems like everything clicks. It seems like everything comes together really, really nicely. I think this is one of those games, and they get a win on the road against the Rice Owls. However, their next 2 games, I think, are going to be really hard for them to win. You have a road game against USF, the South Florida Bulls, which I see you losing that one there. Byron Brown is back. A lot of offensive pieces for USF that exploded onto the scene last year are returning, as well as some good transfers that transfer into this program. Defensively, that's a defense that is on the rise this year as well. And USF is going to be a team to contend in the American Athletic in 2024, as are the Tulane Green Wave. Now, obviously, yes, they lose a ton of talent from last season. Michael Pratt is gone. Some really good pieces in the wide receiver room are gone, but they did really well in the transfer portal offensively. They did great in the transfer portal defensively. And even though, yes, there are are some really good pieces that leave both offensively and defensively. There's still a lot of talent there, and I love the head coach they brought in from Troy in John Sumrall. Again, I said Navy's going to have 1 or 2 games where I think everything just looks and seems to click. East Carolina really struggled last year, and while they're going to be a better team this year, again, this is just kind of another one of those games. I think Navy's going to be able to see this offensive system click. The defense is going to be working really, really well, and I got Navy picking up their 5th win of 2024 with a win here against the East Carolina Pirates, but I do have them losing to the Army Black Knights. I know that this is a rivalry that, in terms of everything that's happened in the 21st century, Navy has dominated, but Army has dominated more recently. If the Black Knights win this one, they will have won 3 straight. Navy's going to look to avoid that, but again, as much as I think Navy's going to have some games where the offensive system just looks great and everything is clicking, they're going to have some games that don't. Now, I know you can literally throw everything away. It is the Army-Navy game after all, but I do have Army winning America's game this year, which drops Navy to 5-7. Look, this offensive system is going to figure itself out, and I think in a couple years, Brian Newberry's group might very well be one of the better units in the AAC. But for right now, 5-7 is what I got. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. I got to correct something really fast. Just a little correction to their conference record, not 3-5. They are 4-4. Hey, again, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. Happy 4th of July. We'll talk about the Baylor Bears in my next video. Goodbye.